I've done this so many times. What's up, everybody? Practice Visuals here, and today I'm going to show you guys how to make a realistic stylized lightning effect within After Effects. Let's go and see the clip. Alright guys, so for this tutorial you're going to need a few things. 1. After Effects. 2. A nifty plugin called Video Copilot's Color Vibrance plugin. It is completely free, and if you don't have it, I definitely recommend it as a visual effects artist. It is going to save your butt on this tutorial and future projects. Definitely get it, but if you have it, let's go ahead and start. Go ahead and start by making a new composition. Let's go ahead and rename this composition to, let's say, Lightning Simulation. Or Lightning Sim, there we go. Don't need any crazy resolutions or anything, looks good. So what we're going to go ahead and do now, layer new solid, make that solid black. We're going to call this layer lightning. Not lighting, lightning, there we go. Alright, and the first effect that we're going to add is, you guessed it, advanced lightning. Alright guys, so that's it for this tutorial. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next... Okay, haha, I got my joke in. Anyway, but as you can see, this effect looks like dog water. Terrible. Adobe, you dropped the ball on this one. You dropped the ball. Definitely don't just drag and drop this effect over and just call it a day. Call it quits. This looks good. You know, the client will never notice that it's just a drag and drop effect. Don't do that. So, what we're going to do here is we're going to tweak all these parameters to make it look stylized and cool, and other effects on top of that by doing our first step. So, if you want this lightning to go anywhere, have at it, make it go anywhere. But I think I want to go ahead and have it be a two-way strike. Not two-way strike, but a strike. And where it starts at one point, very simple, and then it goes and kind of forks out, and then it lands in another place. Of course, this will be up to you. Do what you want to do. But anyway, let's go ahead and hit play, and as we can see, it's not moving. If we go in Advanced Lightning, and we move our points, our origin, and our direction, it animates, and that's great, but we shouldn't have to rely on moving these points and keyframing these to create animation. So what we're going to do is we are going to animate this by adding an expression to the conductivity state. Go ahead and do Alt-click on the stopwatch. We're going to type in time star 3, not 2. And as you can see, it's alive. Yes, I will be doing more, don't worry. So, we are going to go ahead and move on from that. We have movement, and if you wanted to make this movement a little bit more controlled, like if you want it to be like slower, you can do times 1, I guess I'll do 2. It kind of slows down a little bit. Of course, the forking and the little bits are moving at about the same speed, but our main overall line, I guess you could say, is a lot more slowed down. So if you want a slow motion effect, or you want this to move at a different speed, this would control that. But at 3, I feel like that's a general movement. It's got your slow bits moving here, and you got your erratic movements down at the bottom, I guess, or the end of our lightning bolt. So, moving on here, let's go to our core settings. Let's go ahead and adjust this. I'm going to make it 3, because as we add more effects to this effect, we're going to be dimming this down a bit, so we're going to prepare for that in these beginning steps. So let's make that 3, make the opacity around 90. There we go, looking good. And go to the glow settings, make this 0. And 0 again, even though I didn't do anything, but we don't like that glow because it looked absolutely terrible. And from this, we are getting somewhere. This is looking good. We have our basic simulation here, and this is where Adobe did good, and they made a really nice effect here. Very nice simulation. Thank you, Adobe. So we're going to go ahead and move on. The turbulence is kind of like its energy. The energy is going to be controlled by lowering and raising this up. So let's say if you make this 0.2, Yeah, it's lightning. So what we're going to do is not do that. If you want this, hey, have at it. But we don't want that. So let's go ahead and make this around 0.8. Not a 1, but it's a little bit lower, so it's a little bit more controlled. And as you can see, our little movements are there, and our big movements are also there. And we are definitely getting somewhere with this effect. So let's go ahead and move on. Our forking, let's set this to a good bit. Let's make this about 85, let's say. Nice. Even but odd number. Let's go ahead and jump over decay here and make sure we click decay, main core, and composite on origin, because we want to make sure that this effect is compositing with other effects nicely. And decay on main core is going to help us make this effect end at certain places. So if we want this effect to just kind of die at a very short distance, we can do that. But let's say I want this to spread just a little bit. Oh, not turbulence. I want this to reach basically to the point, but I don't like all of this chaos ending at that little part. So let's go ahead and we're going to end it just as it gets close to it. Right about there looks nice. All right, moving on, we're going to go into the expert settings because we are experts. And we're going to set this complexity to about 7 so we get a little bit more of a jaggediness. And set the minimum fork distance up a good bit because it's a little too chaotic for me. Let's go ahead and set this to about 275. There we go. There we go. So it looks really nice. Let's maybe pull the decay up a little bit, or sorry, down. There we go. Cool, cool. And let's go ahead and move on. This is going to be your preference option here. If you want this to look like this, hey, that looks good. But I kind of like spline because it smooths out a little bit. And we're going to move on to the fork strength. We're going to turn this up a little bit, about maybe there. And its variation up as well because lightning is chaotic. It's unpredictable. So we're going to make sure its variation is unpredictable as well. And maybe turn down its decay a little bit more. So that I don't want you to touch my direction. It's touching, but it's not nearly as bad as it was. Looking great. We're doing good. So the advanced lightning effect is complete. We're going to go ahead and move on. Let's go ahead and add a distort effect, turbulent displace. Now this is going to help us get that stylized effect, and I guess at this point on, we're going to move into the more of the cinematic lightning, not so much realistic, like if you're trying to show your mom, hey, it was a storm outside and lightning struck the roof, look, then you probably can go and stop here. But if you want to make a awesome lightning effect, put it into your short film, continue watching. So what we're going to do here is we're going to up the amount here, just do a little bit, maybe about 70, but we're going to turn the size down a little bit as well, so it just little ripples. Maybe about 20 there, looks nice. We're going to bring up the complexity a little bit. Let's make this about 2. And I would say nothing really above that, because if we go to 3, you start getting these little bits and bobs that can disconnect from your lightning, and we don't want that, because lightning is usually all connected. Of course, this is moving very fast, so of course the eye cannot probably find that one little bit as it's moving very quickly, but we just still don't want that because it doesn't look nice. So, moving on here, we are going to add a keyframe on our offset, because let's say you want your lightning to move from one point to another. We're going to go ahead and keyframe our movement of our distortion. So let's go ahead and move that to the right so it distorts in a direction. Very nice, very nice. Maybe we'll go a little faster. Maybe a little faster. There we go. Cool. And then for the evolution, we're going to add a expression to it. Let's do time times, let's do 15. There we go. We're looking good. Cool, cool. That way we have our movement and our distortion, and we have our movement with and its offset. Cool, cool. All right, so our next effect is going to be noise and grain, fractal noise. And this is going to help us achieve a effect where lightning will be bright in some places and darker in others. And let's go ahead and jump down to the blending mode and turn it to multiply so you can see what I'm saying here. So we have parts where it's bright like there and about there a little bit, and right here. Let's go ahead and amplify this a little bit. Let's make the contrast around 170. There we go. So now we have some really dark places. And let's go ahead and lower the brightness down to about -10. That looks good. Cool. Awesome. And what we're going to do is we are going to animate this fractal noise so that it's different every single time, because its intensity in the lightning bolts should be different every frame, because it's, lightning. So what we're going to do here is we're going to do the same thing, add an expression of time to it. This expression I love. It's a lot easier than just keyframing it. Let's do time, let's do by 15, so it's constantly moving. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, this looks good. Alright, we have a awesome effect. We're going to move on to our next layer. Layer, new, adjustment layer. And we're going to rename this motion blur. In your camera, because assuming this effect is shot on camera and not just generated within After Effects and a software, we want to make sure this thing looks as realistic as possible, adding motion blur to our moving lightning. Now let's say that your scene calls for a high shutter speed. That way, if it calls for a high shutter speed, technically you wouldn't even need this effect. But if it's a low shutter speed, if you understand cameras, then you want this effect in there because it's going to integrate this effect a lot better into your scene. So, what we're going to do by doing this, go to Effect, Time, CC Force Motion Blur. Cool. And as you can see, it did something to it. It removed parts where it wasn't in the frame as long and having it fade out a little bit, and that implies movement. And then maybe in the parts where it doesn't move as much, you can maybe see a little bit of distortion in there, like right there. I can see it. Turn it on, off. You can see it's adding a little bit of, I guess, motion blur, quotation fingers, to our effect, making it a little bit more realistic. And if we pull this up, we can see that it's starting to look for future frames or previous frames and putting those in, but we don't want to go too far. Maybe 10 or even 7. Is that 7? No, 8 is fine enough, but let's just do 10 to give it a little more of a stylized look. And let's say your shutter angle, let's bring this to about 220, and that is your parameter.
All right. I don't know if any of you eagle-eyed viewers out there noticed, but I put 20 instead of 220. Just know what forced motion blur does to your effect. Do as I say, not as I do. Continue.
Parameter of which you're going to adjust depending on your scene. If you are running from one point to another in your scene and you have a lot of motion blur, you want this motion blur to be the exact same as your motion blur in camera, because as a visual effects artist, you have to make sure you're not only creating an awesome effect, but integrating it into your shot as well. So that is going to be the lesson for that. And as you can tell, this is going to be the effect that bogs down your computer a good bit, because it's adding fake motion blur, it's looking for frames, and it's just constantly thinking about, I don't even know how to explain it. It's just a very heavy effect. So, moving on here, we're going to go to New Layer, Adjustment Layer. We're going to rename this to Glow. Cool. And go to Effect, Stylized, Glow. There we go. So now we're going to go back to the original rule we had where some parts were brighter than others, and we're going to expand on that some. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring this threshold down a little bit maybe. So we don't want to affect these parts because they're not as bright as the clumped up areas or the areas where it's brighter than others, because we're going to expand on that part first. So let's go ahead and get bold just a little bit. And then make the intensity about 2. Let's double that a little bit. There we go. Cool. So now we have our let's say our clipping, our white clipping glow. And then after that, we're going to duplicate it. And let's just go ahead and work on the overall glow for the other parts, like these little normal average lighting parts as well. Let's go ahead and reset it. Maybe bring down the threshold again, and we're going to bring this a little bit bigger because we want this to be like the inner glow, and then as we go on, we're going to expand on that glow. Maybe bring this so it's covering more ground. There we go. You can see other parts are livening up a little bit. And let's maybe bring down just a little bit again. And then maybe we'll go to the top one again. Let's adjust this. There we go. Looks good. So what we're going to do now is duplicate it again. And we're going to pull its radius up a little bit. We're going to maybe bring down the thresholds a little bit more. There we go. And we're going to duplicate it one last time. And this is just going to be your basic overall glow. And you don't want to go too far because you see this black banding around there, and you don't want that real. This is all kind of a matter. Of course, if your lightning was further away and you're seeing the brightness of your glow wouldn't be anywhere near as big, but this is kind of like, you know, the basic amount. If a person was from here to here, about, you know, distance-wise, then yeah, this would be about right, I guess. Just kind of knowing what looks right. What looks good, too. So you can go and cycle through what you have in your scene versus what I'm doing here. Maybe we can bring this to about 2 as well. Maybe we'll expand on this one as well. Good. How does this one look? Yeah. We might come back to this because it's still a little too harsh. Turn each one off, see what this looks like. This is all a matter of what you think looks good. Maybe we'll bring this back down to 1. Maybe up the threshold again a little bit. That's a nice frame to look at. Okay, cool. I guess that looks all right. Next thing we're going to do is use our handy dandy plugin that I recommended you guys get, Video Copilot's Color Vibrance. And at this point, again, it's up to you what color you want to make it, but I think I want to make mine the standard bluish color. Make this like a mad scientist blue. Yeah, it's kind of like a dulled out. Very nice here. Let's actually maybe bring this down a little bit. We'll add another one as well. There we go. I like that. That looks nice. Okay. So next thing we're going to do is maybe up our vibrance a little bit, just so that it pops just a tad more. And go down to our gamut. We're going to bring this down because if we bring it up, you can start to see an edge on it. And even though this looks really nice, we don't want that. We want to make sure this glow is very controlled. And again, real quick lesson before we move on. If your scene is very bright, let's say you're at the beach or something like that on a nice bright day, your glow wouldn't be anywhere near as bright as this one because that's where you start to make it look fake. But if, let's say, it was a dark scene, if you're in a warehouse or something like that with very dim lighting, then your camera is exposed for the lighting in there, and bright objects are going to be very bright, thus your glow is going to be a lot brighter. So just remember that as well about the lighting in your scene. Again, though, this doesn't really apply for this tutorial because we have a black background. So, this looks great. I'm liking the way this is going. Really nice looking simulations here. We go ahead and play it. It's going to be a second, but looks really good so far. A lot better than what we had in the... Yeah, there we go. That looks very nice. All right, cool. So our next step is going to be not a step for the lightning itself, but for the realism of the effect. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and grab our lightning sim comp, and then we're going to bring it down to another composition, and then we are going to do the next realistic step, and that is add a dust overlay. If you have dust overlay elements, you're good to go. Use what you want. If you don't, however, or you don't know how to make them, I would definitely add this to the description down below so you can download it and use this as your own tool. It's only one, and it's F-3 because that is like a aperture number. I'm planning on making a whole set where it's a whole bunch of different apertures because your aperture is what defines how blurry these little lens dust would be. So anyway, let's go ahead and bring this lens dust overlay to our project, and we're going to bring it down into the duplicated lightning simulation composition. We're going to duplicate this, and we are going to set this lightning sim to be its luma mat for the lens dust overlay. And as you can see, that didn't do anything, or did it? As you can see, it's added a little lens dust overlay into the luma values of this, masking out what parts to add in this overlay in. So we're going to expand on that a little bit. Let's go ahead and go into our disabled lightning sim duplicate, and we're going to go to blur and sharpen, fast box blur. Let's go and just turn this off for now. Let's go ahead and repeat edge pixels, so if it gets close to an edge, it doesn't kind of fade out. We want to make sure it stays consistent. Let's kind of blur it up a little bit so you can see it kind of expanded on us, which is what we want. And then we also kind of lost it, so let's go to color correction, exposure, and we're going to crank this thing up so we can see it. About 5 is a nice number. Maybe bring this up a little bit. There we go. Now, as you can see, set your original composition to screen. There we go. And as you can see, our lens dust overlay is starting to take effect, and it's the lighting of this effect is reacting with the lens dust, or the dust on the lens, and the dirt and grime and scratches, what may have you on the lens, making this thing a lot cooler. From that, we're going to add some more effects to the original overlay. Doing the same thing, let's add the exposure to it so we can brighten it up. But then, we don't like how hazy it is on there because it's a clean lens, but it has little dust particles on it. So let's just go ahead and give it some contrast. Bring up the exposure, and then bring down its gamma correction. There we go, so you can kind of see what that did, is it kind of contrasted it a little bit. And then next thing we're going to do is go back to your original lightning sim, go to your glow, your video, Copilot color vibrance. We're going to copy that and paste it onto our overlay so it gives it that same color, because the blue lightning is going to make the lens dust blue, or whatever color you wanted to make it. And as you can see, our lens dust is now cooperating and becoming bright in areas where the lightning is bright, and dark in the areas where the lightning is dark. So that is it for this tutorial. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys can learn something from it. I hope you guys can use this to your best creative boundary that you can possibly hit. And I hope you guys make better than I do, because I'm always looking to see how you guys do as well. Alright, so I guess that'll be the end for this tutorial. I hope you guys like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video. See you later. Not too bad.